Hey, another edition of the Andre The Beast Show. I just love that 2021 soundtrack.
You gonna start singing too?
Dre Dog.
Beast karaoke.
Today we got another exciting episode in store. 2021 is, like I said, we're rethinking the way we approach life and for the betterment of everyone. It's to first start with ourselves, and that's what this show is about changing your mindset and keeping that beast frame of mind going. And today we're going to understand a very important topic. It's a topic I've been saying throughout each episode, understanding your why. We know why we're born, but we don't know what our purpose really is once we get past that. I was fortunate to meet an individual that not only knows the reason why, but also wrote a book to address these issues. I like to welcome straight from Alabama, my man, Mr. Roderick Johnson. Roderick, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
You know what? That understanding why is, I know people right now are going, what the heck does, but it makes you think for a minute. Because when you brought it to my attention, I was kind of dumbfounded. Let me just be realistic. Because when you ask somebody that question, they kind of like, why? What does happen after you're born? And you're here, but what is your sense of purpose? Let's start by first introducing yourself to the viewers and give a little bit about who you are and your background.
Roger, okay. Like I said, my name is Roderick Johnson. Most people call me Skip Johnson. Actually, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I've actually served in the military. I've served the federal government now for about 35 years. In saying that, have had a very diverse career, just say through college, high school, college, and the military. And the thing about it is just when you really start thinking about life, you start thinking about things that, people say describe yourself. First of all, if I have to describe myself, I usually tell people I'm what's called a Besser.
What's that?
And Andre, you probably saying, what's that? Like I said, you're going to say, what's that? A Besser. Well, a Besser is what it means?
Yeah.
American born, English speaking, African by descent.
Okay.
And why I say that, because so often what we do, we start defining ourselves what's put on a piece of paper. We've been called so many things, say, in our life. We've been called colored, we've been called black, we call African Americans, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then again, okay, that's just a label.
Right.
So you have to have something that's going to define you. Also, so you actually make analogies that make sense to you. Like I said, I was born in America. I'm black. I speak English, and I'm African by descent.
Right. Wow, that is crazy. Why do you find it difficult for people to identify with what you just said?
Because we sit back and wait on other people's approval, or we sit back and we acknowledge what other people acknowledge for us to be. But in a nutshell, if you really think about it, and you think about it from this perspective, in a nutshell, we all are Americans. We should just label ourselves as Americans. Right. That's what we are. But we also always have to put a subcategory to it as well to identify with a culture. Okay, when we talk about cultures, most of the time, most people think about just say black, white, Asian, this, that, or whatever. Okay, so being from Birmingham, Alabama, being from Airport Hills in Birmingham, Alabama, that's a culture in itself.
Correct.
Every community has their own culture, but do we identify with those cultures as well? So often what we end up doing is we start alleviating, not even dealing with the culture where we came from. You got to understand where you came from to understand where you're going, in other words. So when I'm saying identify with your culture, you make something that makes sense to you. And once it makes sense to you, that's what you resonate to.
You You was talking to me, and we talked. What was almost 2 hours?
2 hours, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just fascinating. Share with the viewers the concept of the why concept. I thought that was so. Let me just say it. It was interesting. Explain to the viewers how you shared it with me.
Okay, the why concept is like this. Most people can really tell you when they were born. Most people can tell you where they were born. People can even tell you what time they were born for what was told to them. So we spend so much time, acknowledging our birthdays. Sometimes we look at the different places that we were born and so forth. But when have you really taken the time and ask yourself, why were you born? If you look at your journey, you actually have a destiny if you look at it and look at it from that perspective. But most people never ask the question, why was I born? Why I'm here? What's my purpose? Everybody has a purpose if you choose to have one. So what are you doing to empower yourself to actually just say, be the person that you are destined to be? That is so important to understand. What are you destined to be? But most people, like I said, do not understand their why. So how do we get there? Go ahead.
You wrote a book, and I just started reading it. In the midst of the storm, and it's very impactful. I encourage the audience and the viewers to get this book. We'll talk about how to get this book in a minute. Tell me the journey to this book. I'm almost done with it, but tell me the journey to this book. Was the impact of why the reason for going here?
This book actually started out as just me personally just writing little memoirs to myself, having a conversation with myself. That's how I first started this book. And it's based upon the principle of, in order to change the narrative, you got to change the conversation in your mind. Mm-hmm. That's the very first thing that you have to look at it from that perspective. But the hardest thing to do is to look at yourself for your interpersonally. What's going on inside of you? Like, for instance, things that people don't look at, how this book was written, is, do you really understand and truly understand how you say what you value, what's important to you? Because, say, in one of my journeys, I used to be what's called a suicide prevention manager. And with that, what I used to do, I still do it as well. What I do is I go around and investigate people who make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. In other words, commit suicides.
Okay.
And we always find out that you might have what we call the catalyst. That's no more than the straw that broke the camel back. You may have that, but you also have some things going on with that person interpersonally and intrapersonally. The intrapersonal stuff is stuff that's going on inside of you. And unfortunately, most people don't understand how they feel. They don't understand why they feel that way. And how we don't have those conversations. Say, as a male, and I'm just trying to share this with you as a male, how this book came. By looking at yourself in terminal language that we use, some terminal language that we use all the time. Say, for men, this is not men talk. You would never ever hear another man tell another man, hey, you hurt me. We're not having that kind of conversation.
Correct.
We are not, because we look at hurt as what? A sign of what?
Weakness. Right.
But guess what? Andre, I can have a conversation with you and say, you pissed me off. We can talk about that all day long.
All day long, yeah.
All day long. But the thing what people don't understand is, guess what? Anger, piss me off, is nothing but what? An outward expression of an inward emotion called hurt.
Right.
I just package it differently.
Right.
So if you start thinking about that, why, when somebody makes you angry, you got to start asking yourself, why is that person making me angry? I'm not looking at that person anymore. I'm looking at myself. I got to figure out what's going on with me. And that's where we're losing people, because people don't truly understand how they feel about certain things, what's going on with them. We look for relationships. We look for other people to empower us versus empowering ourselves. So when you start understanding your why, you learn to say yes to your life. Yes, you deserve to be happy. Yes, I deserve to say this person's not going to be my friend. It's totally up to me. But see, the thing is, what I'm doing is I'm empowering myself. And most people don't empower themselves. They wait on people, places, and things to empower themselves, and how we look at ourselves. So when you look at yourself, you got to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's when you start establishing, well, I got to do this thing called acceptance. I got to accept that some ugly in me, there's some good in me, and there's some bad in me.
Mm-hmm.
I got to accept that. Okay? So you think about it, to constitute any change, it starts with what? Acceptance.
Correct. Why do you think that people still to this day have a hard time reprogramming that in their everyday life? You know, is acceptance for people and empowerment that much of a struggle? Or do you just believe that certain people have the ability to overcome these obstacles and the mass majority clearly don't? Or maybe the tools aren't there for them to understand it?
The thing is, the people have the ability, but the problem is most people don't have the courage.
Okay.
And I say that because, you know what? We don't sit up and think about the bad. We try to justify some bad things that happen, this and that or whatever. And like one of the conversations you and I was talking about was the pie theory. I remember telling you about the pie theory.
Yeah.
Okay. It's actually, I'm going to tell you three kinds of pies. The first one is this. The first one is performance, image, and expectations. That's what we put out there. That's public self. We put that there every single day. How well we perform our jobs. Okay. The image that we portray when we out there. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the expectation from an organization or your family or yourself. So we put that pie out there and we play that, we put that mask on every single day. It's another pie and how people identify with us. We talk about things as being successful, this, that, or whatever. We start looking at what? Our possessions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The imagination of how people think that we are. The image that we, like going back to that image again, right? But we also do some things we'll talk about when that goes back to that first P and that last one, expectations. We always talk about expectations. When you look at your expectations, what you look at your expectations being no more than this thing called standards. Okay. But what, like we discussed, what is your standards? No more than minimum requirements. That's where you start. But how many people are lowering their expectations, lowering their standards? Okay. Just to get along, just to deal with some people. You know, we had that conversation before talking about there's only two things you can be in a relationship. That person can be your cellmate or that person can be your soulmate. One of the other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people are still in a relationship with their cellmate because they can't get out? Or they're afraid to get out? Because you know what? Now you have to do what? Walk on your own 2 feet.
Right.
Not understanding. If you can't stand on your own 2 feet, whose feet you standing on?
Somebody else's.
Somebody else's.
Yeah.
You have to look at those things and just look at how we can reframe our thinking, because we are conditioned. Everybody in this room, everybody's pretty much conditioned to pull negative fruit. And I will say that again, we're conditioned to pull negative fruit. And I'm saying if something happens, you always think about it. We prepare for the worst and we hope for the best. We're always thinking we're pulling things. Now, when you think about that, most people will not give you their flowers when you're alive, but they'll talk good things about you when you're dead.
And why do you think that is?
Because we are conditioned to pull negative fruit. It's kind of like this. If I was in school and I write the word M-U-M, which is mom, most people say, you misspelled that word. Because most people spell mom as what?
M-O-M.
M-O.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if I was in Europe, say England, or I was in Australia, how's mom spelled?
M-U-M.
M-U-M. Same thing, just different perspectives. So people tend, if you think about it, people tend to look at each other, okay, based upon their judgmental eyes. And that's what it is. It's their judgmental eyes. So who's defining your story? Who's the author of your book? Okay, when you talk about the midst of the storm, who's going through your journey with you? What are you looking for? But you have to rebuild yourself as well, because we filter things in to make sense to us. Most people do not argue with themselves. So it goes back to the power of the subconscious mind. And that's what we don't deal a lot with, the subconscious mind, not understanding how powerful that is. You know, many people can go to bed with a problem and they wake up with what?
A problem. Not all people wake up with suicide. I was probably going to say they wake up with the same problem because they probably never addressed it to begin with.
Well, some people never addressed it. Tell you a funny story about that. All right. I had a good friend of mine. This happened in the military, but I was a good friend of mine. Every single day, I talk about this person who I just did not like. Every single day. I get up thinking about this person, preparing the tone for my day. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm already getting my defenses up because I know I'm going to see this person because I work with him.
Right.
Then at night, I'm talking to my friend about that person. And he said something to me one day. He said, Skip, when are you going to stop sleeping with that man? I said, what do you mean? I don't get down like that. What do you mean? When are you going to stop sleeping with that man? He said, you wake up talking about that man, you go to bed talking about that man. So I know you're thinking about that man while you sleep.
Right, right.
So what was I doing? I was relinquishing what? My power. I was giving away my power. You always find something to find your purpose with your why. Like I was sharing with you say, I raised my son. What I do every morning when I take him to school, his name is Samuel. I say, Samuel, I love you. He said, Dad, I love you too. I tell him I love you more. He says, I know. Get out the car. He goes to school. Every night when I go to bed, when he goes to bed, after I get him off Fortnite and have our little fights that we gonna have, I say, Samuel, I love you. He say, Dad, I love you too. I say, I love you more. He say, I know. That set my tone for the night.
Right.
Mind you, I've been dealing with folks all day long. But you know what? I made a conscious decision for me that I'm always talk to someone or somebody, even my significant other, someone who makes my day, who's the wind beneath my wing. And I ain't worrying about you guys no more because they help define my purpose.
So it's almost like really trying to create what you're doing here is you're creating an environment of self-awareness, so to speak, happiness, that euphoria of this particular group of people or this particular subject or idol, whatever it is, puts me at calmness. This particular thing I should not let consume me because evidently is a trigger point, I guess, so to speak. So when you're writing this book, were there particular moments that you looked at in your life and people that you was like, why is this happening to me? And then the light kind of like clicked off that put you to the Midst of the Storm book?
Actually, yes. And I'm going to explain what happened. Okay. Too often, the conversations that we have, this is how most people have these conversations, right? Talking to yourself. I'm a good person. I don't bother nobody. Why is all this stuff happening to me? I try to do all the right things, this, that, or whatever. These are the conversations we typically have, right? To validate our journey. Not understanding pain promotes growth. If you start looking at some of the things that say we've done in our life, a lot of stuff that we've done is self-inflicted. And we want to truly pay attention to it, based upon our needs, wants, and desires. So sometimes you got to look like this. Force compliance brings force resistance, but it's kind of like lifting weights. Mm-hmm. And I know you understand this by lifting weights. The thing is this, in order to become stronger, you got to deal with what? Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a story. People talk about this story all the time. This is what you have to figure out. Story. It was a guy who had a donkey, and his donkey fell in a hole. So he didn't want to kill the donkey. Well, he didn't want the donkey to suffer, whatever. So he decided what he was going to do was going to bury the donkey. What he did, he started throwing dirt on that donkey, right?
Mm-hmm.
First, the donkey was holding on to that dirt. Then the donkey shook that dirt off, and he stood on that dirt. He threw some more dirt on that donkey. That donkey shook that dirt off and stood on that dirt. Threw some more dirt on that donkey. Got some other folks to throw some dirt on that donkey. That donkey shook that dirt off and stood on that dirt. What do you think eventually happened?
The donkey got out.
The donkey walked out that hole. See, the problem is so many people, and I ain't calling nobody a donkey, all right?
Right.
But so many people still holding on the dirt they should be holding on to. You need to start shaking that dirt off. What that means, what did I learn from that situation? Because you can go from the pit to the palace. And I mean by the pit is this. If you think about a skyscraper, in order for a skyscraper to stand, the foundation has to be what? Very deep. Look at that pit. So you're going to go through trials. You're going to go through tribulations, this and that or whatever. But then again, what we have to do is start focusing on our journey, start focusing on our mission, focusing on where you want to go, say in that midst of that storm, because you can be in the midst of a storm. You can be coming out of a storm. Your life can be calm, but guess what? You're going back into another storm.
Yeah.
So when you start, storms are nothing but life. And you said something about the environment. It's only two things about our environment I truly understand. And hopefully this makes sense to someone. You have to ask yourself and make a conscious decision. Are you going to be a thermostat or are you going to be a thermometer?
Explain that a little bit more for the viewers.
For viewers, and what that means is this. If you're going to be a thermostat, I pretty much control my environment. I may not like everything, but I'm going to control my environment and contain myself. Okay? That's as a thermostat. But a thermometer, guess what? They let the environment control them. You're just like a leaf in the wind. Whatever's going on and how you react to it. You don't learn how to use neutral statements. You don't learn how to entertain different arguments. Like I tell people all the time, look at it from this perspective. What do you get when you deal with a fool?
You asking me? Drama.
You deal with confusion. You get two fools.
Two fools, yeah. Drama. Another fool. Yeah.
You get two fools because you know what? You already know what you're dealing with. So why even have those conversations? And what a fool is feelings on overload. Because you ain't dealing with no feelings and emotions. So sometimes when you say you're dealing with somebody with a foolish intent, you're dealing with what you end up getting is two fools because you're explaining something you need not explain. You're actually giving up your power. So look at it from that perspective.
Roderick, are there defining tools to help people recognize which category they fall up under, whether they're a thermostat, whether they're a barometer? Are there signs and things that individuals can look in themselves and say, you know what, I'm either this or I'm either that?
Well, it starts with honesty. First of all, you got to be honest with yourself. And so in being honest with yourself, what you have to do is, first of all, do a true self-assessment of your life. And sometimes you do what's called like an edification index. And what edification is all about is you got to actually look in the mirror and ask yourself some critical questions, some questions that you might want to ask, and just looking at it from that perspective. Okay, do I have a purpose in life? How many people sit around and ask themselves that kind of question?
None.
Most people don't. Do you have a true purpose in life? Some other questions are, what are you thankful for, what you're grateful for? Edifications is a self-assessment of yourself. Actually, in that book is an edification index in there as well. Even I put some things in there about different reports that you can do. We're talking about just your personal performance report. Do people believe in you? Do people truly understand that the only thing that you understand is your word? What are you doing with your time? Like I told you before, about 86,400 kind of guy. When I told you what 86,000 is, 86,400 is the amount of seconds in one day. What are you doing with your time? We can recap money. We can recap property. We can recap, say, things, clothes, whatever. But one thing you can't get back is what?
Time.
And we really look at it from our perspective and our age. I got enough common sense to understand I got more time behind me than I got in front of me. So what I'm doing with my time? We have so many people right now that are they're looking at all these different innovative ways to add years to their life, but they forget to add life to their years. Some people don't even live no more.
Man, you know, when I started reading the book, it really made you ask yourself a lot of questions about who you are as an individual, meaning myself. It made me ask myself, who am I as an individual? I can just imagine what somebody else would say when they read this book. But the idea with the show is this book is dead on because it's about helping people stay on track with a better quality of life. You dealt with this because you was also a behavioral health counselor or therapist. Am I correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dealing as a behavior therapist, how widespread is this with people that have this problem is so big? I was, what was your take on it?
Well, my take is this. First of all, I'm an advocate of technology. Okay. However, unfortunately, technology is actually killing us.
The inability to communicate with one another effectively?
Exactly. You're spot on. What I mean by that is this. Okay. If you think about it and think about it from this perspective, most people don't even talk anymore.
No.
All things people do is spend what? Text and email.
Emojis.
Not understanding.
Emojis.
Text. Yeah. Texting and email, you just send in information. Depending on how I feel about you, depending on what I got going on in my life at the time, is how I'm going to interpret that email or that text. A prime example of what I mean by that. You think about the kids today. The kids today do not have what? Interpersonal skills.
Correct.
Self-efficacy, in other words. They don't know what they think and sure don't know what they feel. Let's know and communicate. And say, as a parent, I know a lot of parents can really resonate with what I'm going to tell you right now. Now, my youngest daughter just graduated from college at UGA. I could call that girl every single day, all day long. She won't answer the phone. But if I text her, she'll text me right back. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't talk. They don't communicate. To even prove that theory, back about 10, 15 years ago, the claim to fame when it came to, say, cell phone companies, they gave you unlimited what? Talk. Remember them days?
Mm-hmm.
What they give you now?
Unlimited text.
Unlimited text and data. They ain't got nothing to do with talking.
Yeah. Nobody talks.
Right. Nobody talks. So if you cannot communicate, you cannot articulate. All right. How can you deal with yourself? We talking about social skills. Kids can't even talk. They don't even talk anymore. And adults are falling right back, and we falling into the same thing, and so forth. So we got to do better at communicating, because what's happening is, if you think about it, when most people have those conversations, you're having those conversations with yourself, and you're just talking to your subconscious mind, not understanding that your subconscious mind, like I said before, it never turns off. So it's on 24 hours a day, subconscious mind is. But two things that's so important about it is it wants to protect you, and most of all, it always wants to be right. Most people are not sitting up having arguments with themselves, dealing with the subconscious mind. So what do you feel? What are you feeding yourself? What are you telling yourself? Are you feeding yourself affirmations? Are you saying things like, you know what, I'm gonna be the best person I can be today? What kind of affirmations are you actually saying? Because, like I said, as a motivational speaker, I always talk about her as Lisa Nichols.
Talked about what now? What is that again?
As a motivational speaker named Lisa Nichols.
Okay.
And what Lisa Nichols talked about all the time is the power of affirmations. The power to say, you know what? I'm not going to wait on somebody to empower me. I'm going to start saying good things about me. What Lisa did was, she was going and actually suffering from a low mood or depression for 28 days. what she did was put to just say affirmations around her house everywhere. Everywhere you look, saying good things about her, all the positive stuff about herself. She went back to see her doctor and she wasn't suffering from depression no more. So what did she do? She changed the narrative. Well, most of the time with our narrative, we are talking about poor me. We're still talking about emotional muggers. And those are people, emotional muggers.
What's an emotional mugger?
Emotional mugger is a person. It's kind of different categories. Let me explain this to you. And you can resonate with some of these people. Some of these people are called butt people. Yeah. Have you ever met somebody that will say something good about you?
And then say, but,
and it's something negative. Yeah. Anybody know what I mean?
Yeah, we all got some of those.
Okay, those butt people.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have this thing called some of the emotional muggers, right? Called demeanors. What a demeanor is, this is the kind of person, the worst thing in the world you can ever say to this person is, hey, how you doing?
Why is
Everything come out of their mouth is negative.
Okay.
You ever seen a demeanor?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And they leave you what? Exhausted. Yeah. Every time they call you, it's a problem.
You don't answer the phone. You don't answer the phone on them. Yeah.
Because people don't understand that energy is transferable. If you hang out with negative people, eventually you become negative. Believe it or not. They used to tell this story about this guy. This guy was getting ready to jump off a bridge. And this guy he didn't know walked up to him and said, please don't jump. Brother, whatever you do, please don't jump. Tell me everything that's going on in your life. 3 hours later, both of them jumped. Emotional muggers. So if those are the kind of people that you hang out with, those are the kind of people that you're going to deal with. You know, because we talk about this, we talk about that energy, you talk about different personalities, you talk about people who don't accept responsibility, but we don't ever talk about those sharks.
What's a
and
shark?
You and I had a conversation about those sharks.
Yeah, tell them about the sharks.
Okay. Now, let me tell you what a shark is. First thing about a shark is this. If you was to pull a shark backwards, guess what happens to a shark? They drown. A shark never goes backwards. Shark always is always moving and always moving forward. A shark doesn't look down, is always looking straight ahead. A shark is one of the most fierce animals in the sea, but it's not the biggest animal in the sea. A shark tends to do what? Swim alone. They don't need all these other folks around them to get to where they need to go. Mm-hmm. But one of the most powerful things about a shark is this, what people don't understand, that a shark's skin is almost 6 inches thick. So guess what? A lot of stuff don't hurt a shark. So you look at those people that you hang out with. Look at those people. Are they sharks? Are they emotional muggers? Or are they what we call suckerfish or blowfish? A suckerfish is a fish like a catfish. Where do they hang out? At the bottom of the water, of the ocean, or the bottom of a lake. They get what? Nothing but scraps and so forth. That's what a sucker, you think about it. They're at the bottom. They get whatever somebody give them. Yeah. This stuff, whatever. They always got their hand out for whatever they can get. And then what you have is what we call blowfish. What's a blowfish? A blowfish is the most toxic fish in the world. They have nothing but poison. That's all they do. Quick to tell you what you need to do, but they ain't doing the same thing. That's a blow. You think about it. All that poison that you deal with every single day. But we start listening to these type of individuals and so forth. Now understanding that energy is transferable. Always understanding that energy is transferable. So you have to ask yourself sometime, I'm going to be a sucker. I'm going to hang out with suckerfish because I will become one. I'm going to be a blowfish. Or I'm going to be a shark. It's totally up to you if you have to make that choice. But it's totally about making that choice. That was so important to understand about making a choice.
Are there the tools that's in your book to help people and stuff. How did you come to the conclusion that these are the actual tools that people need to succeed to getting out of that frightening, dangerous area?
It's all about the tools and the things in that book is about just talking about trying to conceptualize this concept called being resilient. Okay. And what is resilient is the ability to deal with setback, distractions, and obstacles. Okay. What are you doing? But first of all, you got to know yourself. You have to know yourself. Like different things in this book, and like you said before, like some different chapters in here that resonated with me based upon me being a young male in my lifetime, some things that to look at. And like one I shared for you was this right here. I tell people, and I tell people all the time, I say, it took me a long time to figure out what a man looked like. And I will say that. And I don't mind talking about that, what a man looked like, because in my mind, the things I saw growing up was about how many notches you had in your belt, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But then again, it took me a long time to figure out what safety and security. When I figured out what safety and security is all about, that's what a man looks like, you know, because most of the time, and we look at it from this perspective, most men get in relationships based upon a promise. Baby, you know what? I got your back. That's the promise. But most women get into relationships based upon safety and security, you know, and potential. So with that, and I say that when we go through our trials and tribulations, we go through different things in life, no matter what the setback is, if I'm talking to my significant other about what's going on in my life, I don't need her to fix the problem. All I wanted to do what?
Listen.
Listen. That's all I wanted to do. And at the end of what I'm saying, what I got to say, as long as you say, baby, it's going to be all right, I'm good. That's all I needed. I just needed what? For you to be what? That promise. I got your back. I got the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So we have to really start looking at that. But unfortunately, like it's a segment in our book about talking about just talking about power. One thing that we don't understand, most men ain't looking for opposition. I need somebody to support me.
Correct.
Okay, because I deal with opposition there all day long. Actually the segment was talking about a brother's not looking for a strong sister. I'm looking for a sister that complements me. All right. So, because when you think about strength, whatever, most of the time is opposition. And most of the opposition that we look at, and sometimes, you know, you have so much opposition at home, well, you used to have so much opposition at work, and now you're going home dealing with what? More opposition. Mm-hmm. I know friends of mine that have said, man, they have to sit in their car and prepare themselves to go into their house to deal with that audience person. Why is that so significant? If you look at what's going on right now with the pandemic, I'm going to share this with you. Some things that we understand about the pandemic is right there, right now. And I call it the 4 F's. We got a lot of people out there have become fixtures. They've isolated themselves. They're not exercising. So it come with another F. A lot of them going to become fat, in other words. I'm just going to tell you. All right? Because they're not doing anything. We got a lot of people out there that are now trying to reacquaint themselves with their significant other. Because guess what? They worked all the time. They had their own routines. And now you're stuck in the house with this person every single day. For the people that's working from home. And then you got some people out there that's fighting. So you start looking at those F's or whatever, and you start looking at just life in general, what we have to do more of is, like I told you before, this thing called acceptance. You know, be the best person that you can be. Understand that, you know what, I don't have it all figured out. I'm just a work in progress. But the thing I said is so significant, it is, I'm a work in progress. But so many people think they've made it based upon what? Money, position, okay, and possessions.
The pie.
Yeah, it's just stuff. Just stuff. That's all that is stuff. But when you start dealing with this thing called another pie, your pain, How about the I, the imagination? Where what if somebody figure out that I got all this stuff going on in my life? You know what? I'll tell you the truth. When you tell somebody your story, most people don't care what's going on in your life. And then the other one's glad as you. You know?
Yeah.
But then the other is we get embarrassed. Most people have things going on. It's not what it's what you choose to deal with it, how you deal with it, what you're gonna do with it. What are you gonna do to be a better version of yourself? That should be the challenge, especially through this pandemic. What are you doing to be a better version of yourself? If you have time, do a self-assessment. Do some things on your bucket list that you wanted to do. If you say you want to go back to school, damn it, go back to school. It's time to go back to school, especially people who are working from home. Everybody should come out of this pandemic being a better version of themselves. And I say a better version of yourself because you have to define yourself. It's what you define. It's not what everybody call you. It's what you choose to define yourself as being, as a better version of yourself.
Roderick, why do you think right now, with not the pandemic, but just in general, with even the racial tension, human identification is a better way of putting it. Why do you think that, as that relate to your book, why do you think where we at today, just with that part of acceptance of what's going on?
Okay, we have to go back to the narrative again. Okay, and just going back to the narrative, unfortunately, if you're thinking about it from this perspective, the best way I can say this, all right? In the past 4 years, I've never heard so much between Republicans and Democrats in my life. Everything, you see what I'm saying? A divide. Mm-hmm. Everything is about, we talk about the haves, the have-nots. We talk about different things or whatever, but then again, we never talked about unity. We didn't talk about that melting pot. We didn't talk about, say, hey, America's a melting pot. That's what it is.
Right.
All the indigenous people here was the Native Americans, but you know what? We call them Native Americans. All right. Everybody else, we're from somewhere else, but we're Americans. So we just need to identify with that. And so when you identify with that, first of all, you got to identify with yourself, because we deal with other things. It's just say, and how we separate each other. We separate each other from the have to have-nots. We separate ourselves from races. We separate from gender. We separate ourselves from colorism, light skin, dark skin. We have all these different separations that's going out there for what? All right, because what? Your skin is no more than 1/8 of an inch thick. 1/16 of an inch thick, excuse me, 1/16 of an inch thick. But what about everything else that's going on inside of you? Why do we put so much emphasis on that? Versus, okay, what kind of person are you? Are you a good person? Are you a bad person? What's your love language? Things that we don't talk about, but we're still to talk about black, white, have-nots, this, that, or whatever, not understanding that, like I said, that's 1/16 of an inch. And your skin actually regenerates every 28 days. So if it's doing that every 28 days, why are we talking about something that's always changing?
Wow. The show, like I said, when we first start talking, it's about that beast state of mind. And a lot of individuals, we really have lost it. It's like we're looking for something, but we don't know what we're looking for, or we can't find the answer, or we don't know how to put the pieces together. Your book clearly identifies all of these things that we're talking about and so forth. But being a behavior therapist, what is the easiest way? Like, what should a person work on first to get to that state of mind, to be more focused in their life and not let every little thing dictate them and put them down that road of, I don't give a fuck mentality?
Well, first of all, what you got to do is some pruning. A lot of people don't like to do pruning.
Okay.
You got to do some pruning.
Okay.
What I mean by pruning is this. All right. It's kind of like flight. Let me just break it down to you like this. The principles of flight is kind of like this. In order for an airplane to take off, it takes off against the wind. That's life in general. It's against the wind. Okay, you got 4 principles. You have lift, right? You have thrust, you have weight, and you have drags. I put people in those categories. I hang out with people that lift me up and thrust me forward. I know people that weigh me down and drag me down. But you got so many people hanging out with weights and drag and wonder why they ain't flying. So when you look at it, and you look at it from that perspective, you have to do some pruning. So how do you do some pruning? This is one thing you got to do. You have to get some people out of your life. I'm just going to tell you. You know, everybody ain't meant to be your friend.
Right.
All right.
Right.
You got to get some people out of your life. And I laugh with people when they say, well, man, you know what? I don't know how to get rid of folks. I say, yes, you do. That's the easiest thing in the world to do, is to get rid of people. You say, well, how's that, Skip? Let me tell you how you do that. Only thing you do is you change the message on your cell phone. That's all you got to do. Change the message on your cell phone. And what I mean by that, your message should be somewhat like this. When you change that message, say ring, 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 ring. I'm sorry I missed your call, but I'm presently doing a reassessment and I'm making some changes in my life. If I don't call you back, you one of them changes. And you're done.
Yeah.
You got to get people out of your life, man. You have to. Because if you don't, you think about how many issues that you deal with, that's not really your issues. It's somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
And you trying to fix their stuff, you getting stressed out. You know? Your life, you run around doing things for them and ain't nothing changed with them but today. Take control of your life. That's the very first thing that you do. You have to do pruning. And then the next thing that you do is this, like we say, like-mindedness, right? Mm-hmm. If I had one stick and I tried to break that stick, 9 times out of 10, I could break that stick. But if I had about 50 sticks bound together, you think I'm breaking all those sticks? No. Mm-hmm. So what does your environment look like? What are the people that you're around? Are you around sharks? You around suckerfish or blowfish? It's totally up to you. But then again, so when you talk about that connectiveness, all right, when you talk about a sense of community, when you break down a sense of community, it's no more than communication and unity. That's what a community is. Communication and unity. Who are you articulating with? What are you doing? What are you dealing with? These things are so important to understand.
You know, I get ready to ask you, right? I think we talked about this. Mm-hmm. There's got to be part 2 to this book.
Yeah.
We won't go there yet. We're going to say that for another episode. It's got to be part 2. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you like this. How can the viewers get this book and start to read it and start to work on changing that beast mentality that they need to work on?
And actually, you can buy the book online. It's iambeast.com. In the middle of a storm. So in the midst of a storm.com. And actually, I will send it out to you as well. But it's in the middle of a storm.com. And with that, you can put it by PayPal. Some people have actually just hit me on, say my email. I don't mind. You know, I'm very personal, I'm very approachable, and so forth. And it's even on my Facebook page as well. Okay, which is Roderick D. Johnson. But in the middle of a storm.com is where you can really get it. In the midst of a storm.com. And I'll make sure that you actually get my email address as well, and also my website.
You know what, Roderick, this is a thing. A lot of times I'm doing all the talking, but you know, the book and your message is so and powerful to me. And I know just people listening is going like, wow. So a lot of times I don't need to talk. I just need to listen like the viewers and just listen to the message. And the message today is definitely one of a need moving forward, especially with the uncertainties of 2021. I'm glad you came on the show. I'm definitely going to have you back, and we're going to talk about more of the things that you've done, which I know all of them, but we're going to give them a little bit at a time. With that said, thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you here. Please make sure you, the viewer, rate, like, subscribe, get the book, read it. I got one question to ask, two questions to ask before I go. I need you, with all the wisdom that you got right now and all the knowledge that you just shared with the viewers, send us off with something positive right now.
Definitely will. Like I said, I talk in parables all the time. Just to make sense, because it makes sense to me.
Right.
This is something that people must understand. There are 4 books in life. 4 books in life. All right. And let me explain these books. Book number 1 says, I'm walking down the street and somebody pushed me in a hole. Too many people still walking around talking about what somebody done did to them. And that's where they are in life. Book number 2, I'm walking down the street and I fall in a hole. You got too many people out there talking about what life has dealt them and what they didn't do, this and that or whatever, versus dusting they put their hands off or whatever and learn to failure and fail forward. What'd you learn from that failure and keep it moving? But this other book is where most people live. That's book number 3. I'm walking down the street. I see the hole and I just walk around the hole. I'm dealing with mediocrity. I'm not trying to change. I'm practicing insanity 101. What is that? Doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. I'm just walking around the hole, and I live my whole life just walking around that hole. And I said, man, Lord behold, I hope somebody get up in the morning and open up that book number 4. What's that book number 4 is? I get up one morning and I walk down another damn street. In other words, I'm doing something different. I'm making some changes in my life. I learned to say yes to my life. I ain't going down that same street I've been going down all these years. I'm going down another street. I'm going to have to do some pruning. I'm going to have to change the mindset, what's going on with me. I got to deal with the good, the bad, the ugly that's going on with me. And I'm going to be a builder, in other words. And when I say a builder, it's kind of like this. This gentleman had been building houses for 30 years. He decided to retire. The actual construction owner said, I want you to build one more house. That's all. I just want you to build one more house. He said, reluctantly, I'm going to build it. He rushed the job. First of all, he put the house on shaky ground. He went into the store to get went to Home Depot, my man's store, went to Home Depot, got shoddy material because I just want to build this house. I'm not getting the pressure treated wood. I just want to build this house. He rushed the job to use his crew, his ride or die that he already been used for 30 years. Once he finished building that house, he gave the owner the keys. The owner turned around and gave the keys right back to him and said, hey, this house is for you for 30 years of hard service. What's my point? This is my point. We got so many people out there trying to build other people's houses, but they ain't taking care of their own. Don't ever forget, life is no more than a do-it-yourself project. That's all I got.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Roderick Johnson in the midst of the storm. Pick it up, buy it, read it. Roderick, it's a pleasure having you on the show. That was so impactful. I told you when we talked for that 2 hours, I was like, man, look, I'm gonna have you on the show. I'm not even gonna ask questions. I'm not even gonna really talk. I'm gonna let you handle that. And you definitely served it up 100%. Thank you for being on the show. I'm gonna have you back. I'll call you after the show and we'll talk a little bit more about the next episode. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Andre The Beast Crayton. Thank you for listening to the Andre The Beast.
Thank you again.
Show.